Hi guys, it's Comrade Kane, and this is a strategy guide for a peaceful domination with Eleanor of England. This is one of the most fun scenarios, if you will, to play in Civ 6, in my opinion. Eleanor offers a unique ability. It allows her to reduce the loyalty of foreign cities within 9 tiles of her cities that contain great works. Now, the way the loyalty pressure works is that the cities with a high population within 9 tiles of other cities exert pressure. And the more of those cities you have, the more pressure targeted cities get. Eleanor's ability enhances that effect because the great works placed in those border cities exert additional loyalty pressure, and as a result, enemy cities lose loyalty faster over time. Now, it is not the easiest way to play Eleanor without game modes. I think Voidsingers with their cultists is a nice addition. It's a chef's kiss on top of the gameplay dessert. There are some other things to be aware of before you start the gameplay. Since this strategy relies heavily on creating great works, right, and placing it in those border cities, you will also generate a significant amount of tourism. So it will be a hard challenge to avoid winning a culture victory. The next thing to consider are your opponents, and specifically Dido of Phoenicia. Those cities will always maintain full loyalty and cannot be flipped culturally or peacefully, meaning that you would have to take them by force, just like any other domination game. So if you don't want Dido, you want a pure peaceful domination game, you're gonna have to exclude her. Otherwise, you just have to maintain a little bit of, military advantage. That's all. Next, avoid forming a cultural alliance with targeted civilizations, as this will eliminate loyalty pressure on their cities. You're not going to be getting anything. Cultural alliances last for 30 turns, so use them strategically and plan to end them when you're ready to exert loyalty pressure. And the last thing to consider is golden ages. Golden ages are important because they provide a boost to the loyalty pressure on nearby enemy cities, so it's important to keep them rolling. Now, when it comes to the map selection, obviously you can play any map. The easiest would be like a Pangeo Highlands, but it's not as much fun as a Terra map. Now, Terra map, right? That's where all civs start on the same continent with a bunch of city states on the other continent. So it's going to allow you to settle cities close to your opponents because we're all going to be packed there like sardines. Now, the smaller the map, I feel like the tougher it is. So if you pick like a standard or a large map, it might make it a little bit better. I feel like Terra is fun and it's going to maximize the effect of Eleanor's loyalty flipping ability. Now, when it comes to the early game setup, your game really should go as any other game. You have to settle cities, you have to expand, but you should forward settle as much as you can, meaning that you want to get as close to the enemy cities as possible because remember, 9 tiles range is when the loyalty pressure starts. Now, ideally, you would surround target cities with your cities. So if you can settle in that manner, or if you can flip cities in that manner, or if you can target capitals, is even better. The larger cities you flip, the easier it's going to make the rest of it fall like dominoes. A huge part of loyalty pressure, right, is city population, meaning that you settle those cities, but you also have to grow them. You have to grow the population. How do you do that? You have to build commercial hubs, harbors, to create domestic trade routes, right? The trade routes that are going to bring food to those new cities consistently. Now, how do you maximize that food? You have to create a city that will specialize in food districts. Food districts, a bunch of districts provide different yields, right, with trade routes. So focus districts in that city and put Magnus with surplus logistics title in it and maximize the food output for those trade routes. Another option on how to grow those cities fast is to chop bonus resources like cattle, rainforest, or even fish, and ensure that those cities have sufficient housing through granary and whatever else, as well as amenities to support that large population. And lastly, you're going to have a strong economy to be able to trade for the great works from other civs, because you can generate great works yourself, but it's going to take much longer. If you want to do it faster, you gotta buy the great works from other civs. So hopefully they do produce them for you to buy them. Now, you also want to ensure a healthy faith production with several holy sites built. It is important for purchasing apostles, for example, because you want to spread your religion. A city that AI owns that does not follow their religion will lose 3 loyalty per turn. The other reason you need a lot of faith is because you're going to use it to purchase cultists. They come with Voidsingers, super important. They're going to speed up city flipping. And you might laugh at this, but you might use that faith to build some national parks to keep up with amenities demand, because your huge cities are going to require amenities to stay happy. Now, when it comes to districts, you're going to have to build and expand your cultural infrastructure, right? Theater squares, especially amphitheaters, because they're going to hold great works. And you're going to build those theater squares all around your borders. And you're constantly going to have to move the great works from the cities that are in towards the center of your empire to the outwards of your empire. So as close to the enemy cities as possible within those 9 tiles. The other district you should consider is entertainment complex. Becomes valuable for the bread and circuses project. What does that project do? It reduces loyalty of cities within same 9 tiles by each citizen by 1. So the larger the city that's running that project, the better, the stronger the impact of the project on the loyalty pressure is. Another thing you're going to consider is leveraging governors. So for example, placing a Mani with emissary title that also reduces loyalty in the nearby cities. You want to place her in the key border cities, maybe cities that just flipped, to increase that loyalty pressure. And now, I already mentioned Voidsingers. I think it's optional, but it's going to make your game so much easier. Voidsingers provide additional yields, and obviously cultists that come a little bit later. Those units can further reduce loyalty in the enemy cities pretty fast. You have to have a decent faith production, because cultists can only bot with faith, and they also have some kind of an exponential cost, which honestly I was a little bit confused about, because on one turn they seem to cost a low amount, and then if you buy several of them it increases. Then the next turn the cost drops again, and if you buy several cultist units in the same turn, the cost rises with each purchase. So it's kind of funky, but if you're producing a shitload of faith, it doesn't matter. Now, when it comes to diplomacy, yeah, definitely want to maintain peaceful relations, right? So focusing on the diplomacy, on pacifying the civs around you, so it will allow you to build up your cultural infrastructure, your cultural influence without the risk of war and spending the resources of defending yourself. Ideally, you just want to be at peace at all times. But while your goal is peaceful domination, maintain a small but effective defensive force. Plus, if you have to attack Dido at the end, well, you're gonna need some units. Now the next thing is espionage. Spies generally are like a pretty bad investment. In this case, though, I would say that you can deploy spies for a couple of reasons. Number one is you neutralizing their governors, right, in those target cities, meaning that those governors provide a boost to loyalty. You remove those governors, that loyalty is gone. So it's almost like increasing your own pressure. The second reason for the spies is the fomenting unrest missions, which will reduce loyalty in chunks. I get it, takes a little time. There are policies that you can use further down the tree that can shorten the mission time. There are promotions. So eventually, if you do build like 4 or 5 spies and you just put them all over the place, it's going to pay off. Now, what you want to do, as I mentioned before, is focus on flipping larger enemy cities, right? Especially capitals. But the way to flip them is to surround them. So you kind of, at the beginning at least, you have to surround enemy cities with your flipping sort of like wave of attack. But later in the game, when you acquire cultist units, they're going to make it so much easier because now you can kind of pinpoint and target certain cities. And it's best to deploy a group of them at once. They have limited charges, like 3 charges. So they combine the effect together. They can flip a city within like 1 or 2 turns. Last but not least technique is to target the other civs and deprive them of amenities. Well, how do you do that, right? Like, well, stop trading amenities, luxury resources to them, first of all, or hoard the resources globally. Now, once you get to like a late game, it's time for the final push. As more cities flip to your control, your loyalty pressure will just snowball. And you're going to continue to expand your cultural district and produce more great works. You pretty much bought up all great works at this point from everybody. And you're applying pressure to the remaining enemy cities. You send in armies of cultists across the border strategically to specific cities. Now, there is also a dark summoning project. So if you do have Voidsingers, this project can further increase cultists' loyalty damage. This project is pretty expensive. It's 1,000 production. Plus, you need Symphony, which is a level 3 title for the Voidsingers, and it comes in the Atomic era, so it's pretty late. And I don't think you're gonna need that much time. I didn't. So the takeaway, right? Like the key takeaways is the strategic city placement. Place cities close to enemies to maximize loyalty pressure. Cultural focus. Build theater squares and acquire great works to amplify that cultural influence and loyalty pressure. Diplomacy and defense. Maintain peaceful relations while protecting your borders. And then you just have to adapt, right? Adjust your strategy based on the map, on opponents, and the game situation. I hope this guide has been helpful to you. I hope you enjoy the gameplay. I surely did, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Don't forget, it's Terra map that makes it more fun than anything else. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.